Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station. If you're just joining us, we're actually talking about being an unconscious dad. So I have a couple questions. My first one, basically, well, really, I want to know is what are the behavior patterns of an unconscious dad? So as a kid, you can acknowledge this sooner. I think maybe you wouldn't be able to help your parent with it, but you at least know that this is how your parent's living and it's not you.
So you're talking about from the child's perspective, looking at their parents to see if they're conscious or not?
Yeah, what kind of behavior patterns can I notice?
Well, for one, being reactive. So if you're, from the kid's perspective, if your mom or dad doesn't stop for a moment and take just a breather in between, conversations, or let's say you're upset, you're angry, because when you're a child, you can't control those emotions. You're unconscious yourself, so you get angry, you get upset, and then you say something, to your mom or your dad. If your mom and dad reacts just immediately and just comes back and throws it back at you, that shows you that they're reactive. They're not proactive. Proactive means you're stopping, you're breathing, you're assessing what's going on. You're doing a whole evaluation of the process, and when you get really good at it, you can do it fast. You can evaluate, you can realize, okay, I'm not going to respond with more negativity. I'm not going to, my son said this back to me, I'm not going to respond like that. But if you don't have no thought in between and you just you're in reaction, or if you're noticing your parents are reactive, there's a good possibility that they are unconscious to some level.
Yeah, I really like that because I remember growing up, my mom and I, as a young teen, we would get into it a lot. We would fight a lot. And I think I learned to be reactive from her because she was like that as well. And we would kind of just go back and forth. And as I got older, I realized, if I don't even react or I just, calmly walk away or just end it, that's it. It's ended. It's done. And, she does it too. But it took me a long time to realize that we're the same person. We were both just, it was both of our faults.
Right. But the process that which you stopped and thought about it, or even in hindsight, you went back and reevaluated, is the awareness. So let's recap. So awareness, the consistent state of being aware of oneself is being conscious. So it's constantly being aware, constantly checking in, constant reevaluating. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? Why did I react? And just keep checking in all day long. Is in that state of awareness determines your level of consciousness. So as you get really good at doing that and making those adjustments and fine-tuning yourself and evolving to a higher level, your level of consciousness goes higher. You're more aware, you're in that state of mind. When you get to a higher level, and this is for a whole nother show, when you get to a higher level of consciousness, you're able to be in scenarios and situations where you don't get upset.
Right.
You don't get tagged, you don't get mad, you don't get annoyed, you're not angry as much. You're more at peace because you realize that you have a choice. Conscious people realize I have a choice every day, all day long, minute by minute, hour by hour, moment by moment. I'm constantly choosing. When you're consciously aware that you have a choice, you don't have to react just from fear or from anger. You can stop and go, all right, you know what? He's allowed to have his opinion, so I'm just going to respond with, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. I didn't never consider that. Now that's coming from a higher level of consciousness. The unconscious is, well, I don't agree, I disagree, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Those are two examples of, I'm trying to give you some contrast of what it would look like from an unconscious perspective and a conscious perspective.
Right. So what you're saying is if you practice, like, say, for instance, after the fight and you go back and you reevaluate your decisions, your choices, all the things that you did and said, you kind of learn eventually to just implement it the first time. Therefore, there is no reevaluating at the end because you already avoided the whole situation.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think that, even in hindsight, going back and reevaluating so that you can learn the lesson that you need to learn is powerful. Rather than you saying, oh, my mom's crazy. Anybody can do that. Or there goes my daughter again. She's just a little, witch or whatever. Like those aren't powerful. All you're doing is being the victim and blaming them. And when you're the victim, that renders you powerless. You can't change the outcome. When you take responsibility for it and say, well, how did I cause that, or how did I co-create that with her? And then if I look at it and I say, well, you know what? I said something to her that I know is a dig, and I probably shouldn't have said that. I gotta learn not to do that. I gotta learn to speak in a different way. I gotta learn how to empower and inspire her rather than always telling her what she's not doing right. And so that conscious awareness and evaluating process is the golden nugget for you as a parent to just keep getting to the next level, to becoming an extraordinary parent rather than just an average and ordinary mom or dad.
Right. So before I had asked you about some of the behavior patterns, right? If I can, I want to share just an experience that I remember growing up.
Absolutely.
So
probably going to be in the hot seat, aren't I?
Yeah, probably.
Well, I'm used to that.
So, like I said, I mean, we were even talking about this before we came on the show. It has to do with my favorite Aaron Carter poster. So when we were growing up, me and my sister fought over a lot of things, shirts, clothes, CDs, whatever. So growing up, when we would fight over things, instead of figuring out how to get around it, you would just take it. So you would take our poster, or you would take our clothes, or, you would just throw it away. And all of a sudden, her and I didn't have it anymore. And I'm getting emotional because I remember we could have just avoided it by not fighting. But how many times was that going to happen before you realized, or mom realized, that that wasn't the right tactic for us? Absolutely.
And first off, I want to start off by apologizing and saying that I'm so sorry that you experienced that. That was a stage of still in my growth and my process where, and this is a great example, the only way at that time that I knew from an unconscious point of view is, let's just get rid of, it's almost like, okay, you guys are going to both fight about this? Well, guess what? None of you get it. How powerful is that? I mean, and then if I tore it up in front of you, how traumatizing is that? Especially if Aaron Carter was the love of your life and I'm tearing it up to a little girl, that's like, you just stomped on my heart. And it's so, I'm so sorry that happened. And I'm glad you brought it up, because it's a good learning lesson for me, even in hindsight. Even if it was 10 years or 20 years ago, looking back, that's not the higher me. That's not the higher version of me. The more evolved version would have came in from a loving, compassionate place and sat down and maybe taught you guys a lesson. Like, hey, there's going to be times that we're not going to agree, and been proactive. Like, hey, how can we solve this problem? And then maybe ask you questions. Sasha, what would you like to see? Jasmine, what would you like to see? What's your request of your sister? And what's your request of your sister? And how about, and then come up with a solution. How about one of you takes it for a day and the other one takes for a day? And that younger version of me, if I was hot-headed, and especially if you come home from a hard day's work, and these aren't excuses, I'm just telling you, if we're painting that picture, let's go back. If we're coming back home from a hard day's work and you're stressed about bills and you're frustrated, and then your kids are fighting, the bottom of the barrel, unconscious, easiest choice is just to eliminate it, or to stomp on it, or to say, well, none of you get it. There's nothing powerful about that. What's extraordinary and powerful is figuring out how to show two little girls how to get along and be proactive, finding a solution. And that's what I should have done. And it was just part of my journey. And I hope you can forgive me for that.
Oh, I do. I just wanted to bring it up. But no, I think my sister and I, we struggled for a lot of years trying to get along. And, I think I'm not blaming you guys, but I think if we had some different techniques or tactics or skills, we would have figured it out, a long time ago. It took us, 18, 20 years.
Yeah, but you're little babies, you're little kids. You don't, and I'm glad that this is coming up, because as a parent, your kids, they're looking up to you to show them how to do that. You need to take time to teach them and sit down. That's why I said I should have sat down and said, taught you those skills. But I didn't even know them myself, because I was unconscious to some level and I hadn't got to that point yet. And that's why I believe that if you have grandparents and they're really smart and aware and loving you need to have your grandparents in, if you're a parent and your mom and dad are the grandparents of your kids and they're loving and nurturing, you need to have them around because they have some wisdom that they can help you balance out to parent your kids. They can offset some of your own anger and, some of that yucky stuff that gets in the way of you just being a great parent. They can teach you some things. And I think on a conscious growing level, when you get older as a grandma or grandpa, you become wise, more patient, more loving, just more accepting, and you're grounded, you're solid. But it took you how many years to get to that state?
Right.
That's why I'm excited to be, a grandfather, because I can't wait to be able to sit down with my grandkids and love them and give them the things that you and your brother and sister haven't got to that level yet. I want to add that without making you bad and wrong. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So, because I know you're on your own journey and you're growing, just like I needed to grow and get to that level. But as I'm sitting back watching you guys struggling with that, I'm going to come in and give them what they need as a course correction, but not making you bad and wrong, just accepting that that's where you're at. And hopefully together as a powerful family unit, we can raise your kids to be amazing.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that you can't wait to be a grandparent, because I joke around with my friends that just within the last couple of years, growing up, that you're like a grandpa already. Because it
Why,
was
'cause
like
of gray hair?
No, not exactly, but because growing up, you were maybe for like the first 10 years of my life, you were one way, you were a certain way, which I would probably classify as unconscious. Maybe like the first 8 years of my life was, you being what I imagine a normal dad is like, and I put that in quotations, but you can't see that. But that's what I imagine a normal dad is like. And then, the last 10 years when I was in high school and, junior high growing up, it was almost like you were a grandfather because you were a lot more vulnerable, a lot more compassionate. And it was almost like you skipped that. Like you don't need to do it for my grandkids. You did it for me already. I mean, I would love for you to do that for your grandkids as well. But what I'm trying to say is you were really that for me already. And it's not like I had to go through 20 years of you being quote unquote a normal dad. It's I got the first 10 years, you became very aware, very conscious of yourself and who you wanted me and my brother and sister to be, that you kind of shifted yourself and realized that what we needed was that, I guess, grandpa vibe, the being vulnerable and compassionate.
I'm glad I was able to bring that towards the middle part of your life. I wish I would have, done a lot more work, a little more intense, and really had those awarenesses and those breakthroughs when you guys were younger, because that's where it really counts. Age 0 to 6 is where they really need nurturing. They really need, being sensitive and soft and gentle and kind. And as a Hispanic, type A personality controlling style, man, you guys must have got, you got it handed to you. I look back at old videos. There's this a home video that brings me to tears, and it's of your older brother, Mark, when he was little. He was 5 years old, cutest little boy, and we went fishing. And on the video, he's reeling in his fishing pole, and he gets his line all tangled up, and he looks up at me. He's like, "Dad," he's like, "Oh man, I tangled my line again." Sorry. And then he on the videotape, I immediately respond in reaction, and I start belittling him and saying, "Why did you do that? I told you not to do it like that." And that breaks my heart, because what he needed was somebody to love him and be kind and gentle. And those are those pivotal moments where you look back and you realize that's the kind of dad I don't want to be. And sometimes we need to have those moments where we can see ourselves there and realize that I want to be better than that. And so I'm glad that I got an opportunity to see that, because it has helped me in my growth and in my process to become, more compassionate and caring and loving and patient. The patient me would have sat there and said, "It's okay, come on, sit down, let me show you how to do this. It's a great opportunity to show you how to do this yourself." And I was too hot-headed. I was too young. Sometimes, we're not mature enough to have kids. And I'll be the first one to say I wasn't mature enough to be able to have kids at, 19, 20 years old. But those are that's the damage we do to our kids young. I hope that parents could, learn from some of these mistakes and decide that they want to start a journey on their own to become a better dad and be more conscious and more aware, and what great gifts you can create for yourself, and what a great family you can create when you decide that you're going to turn your life around.
Yeah, it's funny because we're talking a lot about you being unconscious, and I feel like I haven't really acknowledged you for being as conscious as you are, and basically creating who I am, my brother, my sister, and I. But I don't want people to think or have this idea that being unconscious is bad. I feel almost bad saying that. Like almost what we're saying is not okay to be a good dad.
I'm glad you're bringing that out. There's nothing wrong with being unconscious. You're not bad and wrong. You're just unconscious. It is what it is. And what's funny is that you don't know you're unconscious until you have a profound awakening to realize what consciousness is. Like if you were to ask me at age 22, as I already had Mark and I was a dad, if you asked me at 22 if you would have told me, hey, you're a little bit unconscious, you need to start working on yourself, I would have said, you're crazy. What are you talking about? It wasn't until I got into that training room in that weekend and had these powerful aha moments and these real deep, meaningful breakthroughs where I realized, wow, there's a lot more work for me to do on myself. Parenting isn't just about being smarter than a 1-year-old. And yeah, you can guide them and manage them for the next 7, 8 years. But when they start to get a brain of themselves and start questioning you and asking you why, and you don't have the patience and you don't have the maturity to sit down and explain why, you're going to do like I did. You're going to say stuff like, because I said so. How demeaning is that? Because I said so. That was in my days. That was old school stuff. Is you just didn't question things. Today's world, you got kids that are smart. They want to grow. They're hungry to become conscious and aware and evolve. And if you haven't primed yourself as a parent to build them up like that and give them what they need, they're gonna struggle. And then all you're doing is creating and producing your offspring to be out there struggling as 20-year-olds. You're gonna wonder why they're still on your couch at 28, still playing video games and eating all your food and not going out and getting doing anything or following their passions or going for job interviews. And that's just something for you to take a look at.
Yeah.
But by that time, I'm not gonna say it's too late, but it's kind of like, ooh, now I got to do triple the work. I got to really do some major stuff. And so hopefully I can catch parents as they're, earlier on in their years of parenting to start realizing how important it is.
Yeah, but I just want to, I guess, clarify, there's nothing wrong with being unconscious and there's nothing wrong with the way that you're parenting.
That's right.
But it could be better.
That's right.
There's room for improvement.
Let's put it this
There's
way.
always room
Unconscious
for improvement.
parenting, you can still create extraordinary kids,
Right.
have, go out and create great families, and they're loving. There's absolutely and I'm glad you brought that up. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. There's just a pivotal moment for each individual to decide, I want to be great. I want to just when at the end of my life on my deathbed, I want to look back and know that I left it all on the field, that I gave it everything I could, and I worked really hard at it. I learned, I discovered, I grew, and I left my heart with my family.
Right. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station. My Conscious Dad and I are going to go over a quick recap of what we talked about today. So first, we talked about a father's willingness to open up and be honest.
We talked about allowing your true self to come out, discovering your authenticity.
Seeing yourself as great, not just average.
We talked about unconsciously living a facade, like pretending to be something you're not.
What is a conscious dad?
We talked about checking out as a dad, like being there, but not being present, like your body's there, but you're tuned out.
Taking responsibility for your child's growth.
We talked about checking in is the state of awareness, like looking back and going, why did I say what I said? I could have said something different.
We talked about the behavior patterns of a conscious and unconscious dad.
We talked about being proactive, not reactive. When you're proactive, you're more enlightened and tuned in, and when you're reactive, you're unconscious.
We talked about learning how to speak in a different way, reaching out to your kids differently.
We talked also about it's okay to be unconscious. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not bad and wrong. It's just part of your process.
And there's always room for improvement.
I love it. You should have listened to the show. If not, you can always grab the podcast and listen to it while you're working out at the gym.
Right.
What do we got coming up for next week?
So next week, you have a Superwoman workshop. So it's a women's workshop. It's on Saturday, August 22nd. Can you explain what we can expect from it?
Absolutely. My mission is to bring together all the powerful women in Santa Clarita Valley, as well as the women that have forgotten how powerful they are, get them into a room, and I'm great at facilitating these experiential exercises to help women realize how magnificent and truly powerful they really are. And it's going to be an amazing workshop. Again, it's actually next Saturday, August 22nd. You can reach out to me if you're interested at 661-505-5021 or send me an email at alex@alexurbina.com. You're gonna love it. So reach out to me. Let me know if you're interested.
What I love about these workshops is learning not only how to empower yourself, but empower other women.
Isn't that awesome?
It really is, because it's almost like women are constantly in competition with each other. So, and we're pretty strong. We could take each other down, but imagine what we could do together.
Or imagine building each other up.
Right, and working together and just being better women.
You would take over the world.
Right.
And then men would be sitting in the back seat saying, honey, are we there yet?
So next week's show, we're talking about your kids are your own results. What does that mean? That
means that you can either choose to take responsibility for your kids and realize that the results that they're creating, you co-created that. That all the dysfunction that went on earlier on and the adjustments that you weren't willing to make is what has them create those kinds of results. So you can either choose to say, the way that my daughter, my son is showing up in their life, I co-created that, so I'm responsible for that. It happened and went down during my parenting. And if you're going to take the good, you're going to take credit for the good, you got to take credit for the bad. You got to own all of it. And there's power in that. We'll talk about that next week.
Great, I like that. Thank you for joining us today on My Conscious Dad with me, Jazmine Urbina, and my dad, Alex Urbina. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m.